right, welcome back, welcome back. I know you are accustomed to seeing Game Life Chronicles, but now we're launching this new miniseries. It's called Game Life Chronicles Checkpoints Through Time. All right, we're going to take a look at gaming's rich history and its impact across different eras and titles. And we want to look at that as experienced through our eyes, this generation's eyes. All right, each episode, we're going to focus on a different era, genre, or an iconic game, right? Trying to look at the memories, the culture, the gameplay, the mechanics, anything that we're really interested in and we want to talk about, all right? These episodes are going to be a little shorter than our Game Life Chronicle episodes, but we're just going to delve into our nostalgia and our memories, all right? The very first episode, we are going to get into the iconic NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, all right? And to do that, we are going to get going. We are going to do this with our co host, Gamer Dad.
Hey everybody, this is Gamer Dad, professional gamer here. I don't get paid for it, but I've been doing it for quite a while. I'll do my best to try to help Sparkle and everybody else see how gaming impacted
If I
me
could be a
and the
professional
stuff that I
gamer,
saw through my eyes
that would
growing
make
up.
it top tier. Life would be top tier if all I can do is just gaming. But either way, today we're gonna start on this 8-bit era. All right, we're gonna talk about that rise of the Nintendo Internet Entertainment. I'm about to say internet, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. Right. So whether you blew up blowing on those cartridges, right, because I feel like that was part of the culture, or you just were part of the emulators, right? Like you get to experience the classics through the emulators. This episode is for you. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with the NES itself. Sherm, do you remember your first experience with that console?
I think I remember getting it. Like I remember the box. I
Really?
remember everything about the box was huge. It was a big box, black and red, I think, and I think it had like
Oh, it would have been
the
Mario.
game
It had to have
on
been
it. I think
Mario or Zelda,
Mario
right?
was on it, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Most likely Mario. Most likely Mario. Mario was like the mascot. Mario kicked everything off. In fact, one of the first games I had, or one of the first games I remember playing is Mario 1, but my Mario 1, and for anybody who's listening that had this, it was
Oh, Duck
Mario
Hunt was
and
it?
Duck Hunt. It was a game named Duck Hunt. Yeah, it came
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it came together on the cartridge. So you could either choose Duck Hunt or Mario. That's the one I
It was
had.
pretty cool. Duck Hunt
So
was
yeah, I
big,
remember
especially I
that.
think in Japan. Duck Hunt was
I
really,
remember
really
that.
big back then. When did that console come out? Like, was it like 1985,
Probably.
1983?
I think so. Mid 80s,
Yeah, I
I
think
believe.
for me
Around the
the
mid
first
80s,
thing I
yeah.
actually remember was like
Yeah.
maybe Zelda. And then I remember getting cut back to Mario, but like I didn't have it, right? Like I had to wear like internet cafes and stuff like that to play with it. And I think my first experience with yeah, for the
Yeah,
Duck
yeah,
Hunt.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had the gun too. I had the gun, yeah, because the Nintendo system had like you see how it is now, and I
Hmm.
feel like I'm skipping ahead when I talk about the impact, but I'm gonna just put it in.
Hmm.
Now you have motion sensors, right? Back then, Nintendo had a glove. They had a mat. Like there was this game called,
Oh.
I think it was like the Olympics, like the Nintendo games, and it had all these different events like the Olympics. And some of them you couldn't do unless you had the mat. So even back then, the mat was like a controller. You had a glove, you had the gun. I'm pretty sure there were other things, but that's what I remember. And I
Hmm.
remember that game, having that game and not being able to play one of these events because
But
I
I
didn't
feel
have the
like
mat, but you could
I
play other
remember
games.
hearing about the glove, and I feel like the glove was one of those that it didn't really like. I feel like it didn't do what it was supposed to do. It was the power glove, right? Like I feel like they were trying to get ahead of its time, but like it didn't do well. I don't think it did well at the time because
Hey, look,
first of all, it was huge, right? Like compared to the sort of things that we would get to these days for like aiming and all that stuff. I feel like It was super huge. It's still iconic for the time, but like it didn't do well commercially.
I never had it. All I had was the gun and the controller. But I remember the glove and I remember seeing it. So you're
Yeah,
right. It
because
didn't
they had a
last
couple
long. So maybe
accessories
it
during
didn't
that
work
time.
out.
They
I
had
don't
the
know.
glove and the zapper for Duck Hunt, but Duck Hunt was doing really, really, really well. So I think the zapper was the one that
Mm-hmm.
took off. Well, they
Mm-hmm.
but and either way, those accessories sort of like set the balance for like all these accessories and all these things that are coming out right now.
Yeah, it was the foundation.
Yeah,
Nintendo was innovative,
yeah.
very innovative before its
Compared
time.
to speaking of before its time, compared
Yeah.
to gaming right now and like the accessibility of it and the difficulties of it, how does gaming back then compare gaming on the NES compared to like gaming now?
Yeah, it's so different. Gaming back then, you sat down, you played a
That
game,
left a
you
save
was not
file.
getting up until you beat the game. Like there's no save, there was no load. Even if the game got pixelated, right? If you were still able to play it, you played it because you know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
that was it. Playing a game like Mario, for example, and Mario is like World 1, Level 1, World 1, Level 2. If you get to World 7, Level 3, and you're almost
All
done
the
and
way
the
over.
game messes up, that's it. You got to start all over. So back then it was like a sense of urgency. But with the game, with the way the games were made, the simplicity of it
Yeah.
made you feel like you can do it. You get what I'm saying? So you
Mm-hmm.
never stopped. And I'm talking like what? I'm 38. I got my Nintendo when I was like 5 years old. So even then, like I'm playing the games, and
Yeah.
because there were only four directions, is up, down, left, right. That's it. Two buttons, up, down, left, right, two buttons. It's simple for a 5-year-old to get in, and you jump, you die,
Yeah.
and then
Because
you
despite
learn,
how
you grow
simple
with
it
the
was,
game.
that 8
You
bit,
grow, you
the
know?
8-bit graphics was still super engaging, especially for its time, right? Like it still caught us to do it.
Unforgiving is a word that I would use. Unforgiving. Like sometimes right now in games you have
Hmm.
the double jump. Damn near any character in any adventure game can get it. Back then, it was no double jump. You made the jump at the right time, and if you didn't, doo 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 doo,
The
and then you just
amount
start over.
of
That's it.
skill you had to have for timing was crazy. It was diabolical.
Yeah,
Like you, I distinctly
it taught.
remember trying to make jumps in Mario and getting stuck for however long in just like one particular jump, and you cannot move. You can't do anything. You can't move on without making a part this one past this one part. And it's not like back now where you could like Google a tutorial or something and see somebody do it, like get the right angle. It's trial and error until you do it yourself.
Yeah. And Mario wasn't the only one. Like Mario was the main one that everybody played, but there were other games that was because it was the Nintendo
Hmm.
and because of what we had, it was just 8 bits. That was it. So they could only do but so much, but they packed so much into the games. Like one of my
Ooh,
favorite games was a game called Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It's a boxing game where you play as this 17-year-old
yes.
old boxer from the Bronx named Little Mac, right? And all you do is you fight guys in a ring, right? You could dodge left, you could dodge right. A and B were, left hook, right hook. Up A and B were left hook, right hook to the face. So little things like this, right? They're they're layered. So on
Hmm.
the surface, it looks like a very simple concept. But the more you fight, the better the competition gets. And some characters, in order to punch them in the stomach and get an open hit, you got to hit them in the face.
Punch
So
them
it's not just
uppercut.
as
Yeah.
simple as just, oh, just jump and press the button. So the simplicity of it, the fact that it was only 8 bits, Nintendo
Mm-hmm.
They just stuffed it full of intricacies. And to play a game like that at 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, it's frustrating. But what
Mm.
like it
Yeah.
makes you learn patience, right? So I'll give you a quick example. So I have the Switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle, he's 7. He plays
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man. He plays Fortnite. He wins in Fortnite, Battle Royales, Victory Royale. He wins these things, right? Um, of
Mm-hmm.
course, he grew up
Yeah.
playing games with me, so you know us. We're competitive, right? So we play game together. I had him playing Punch Out. He could not sit and just wait
Mm-hmm.
for things to, like, he just kept punching and punching and punching. And the more you
Yeah.
punch in that game, when the person blocks, you get tired. So these are things you have to understand. And he was 7 and he was like, what's happening? Like what's going on? And the first person in Punch Out is the easiest person ever. But if you don't
Yeah.
be patient and actually understand what to do, he can beat you. So he beat him. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I'm thinking of me when I was his age at 7. I almost beat that
Yeah.
game at 7
It is a
because I grew
it
up
is a
playing it.
different set of mechanics, and for
You know what
this
I'm saying?
generation as
So,
opposed to how we came up, right? Like they have that instant gratification situation going on. Like each hit they can see their damage counter. Each, you know,
hmm
we grew up on games. You didn't know what kind of damage you were doing until
hmm
something disappeared. So they started you were
yep,
doing
till they
damage
started
or
blinking. They
not.
blinking and you're like, oh, it's
Yeah,
almost
but they
done.
can
It's
see their
over.
damage counter. They can see how much hits they're
hmm
putting out. They can do all these things, right? So they don't have that level of patience for it. Did those games influence the kind of games you enjoy now?
Definitely. What? I still play the newest Mario. Whenever the new Mario come out, whenever the newest, I'm mad because I didn't play the last Zelda game. But yeah, like side-scrolling beat 'em up games. Like there was a Double Dragon came out on NES. Battletoads was another game. I
Yep.
still play side-scrolling beat 'em up games. I had WrestleMania. Um, of
Yeah.
course, back then, they weren't what they are now, but yeah, I was into
Hmm.
wrestling back then, and I had WrestleMania for Nintendo. And
Yeah.
recently, you know how PlayStation has the monthly games? They just put WWE 2K24 up there, and I haven't played a wrestling
Yeah.
game in years, but I got it for free, and it's really good. So yeah, like the only thing I didn't play on there was a fighting game because on Nintendo, at least from my experience, the games that I
Hmm.
had, they were not fighting like Street Fighter and stuff. It was more like the boxing game, or I had the
Yeah.
Karate Kid game, but it was a side-scrolling beat 'em up game. Ninja Gaiden, side-scrolling beat 'em up. So I didn't have like a fighting game, but outside of that, yeah, I still play. And it dictated the games I don't play
Hmm.
because there was a game on there called Dragon
Yeah.
Warrior,
You
an
can't stand them.
RPG game. You know how I feel about the role playing games. And it
Hmm.
started from that game because I was playing it as a kid and I couldn't understand why I had to choose what I wanted to do. Like I could walk around and go into the caves, and when it's time for me to fight, it's fight, run, and I tried to play that game
Hmm.
so many times as a kid because it's my game, and I didn't like it. So since the
But games like
1990s,
Zelda could be
I
considered role
don't
playing
play
games.
role playing games. Games like Zelda are role playing games. So I guess the game that
Ah,
I'm mainly
turn
talking about
based.
are the turn based. That's what they call them, like turn based.
Hmm.
Yeah, like Final Fantasy VII,
Yeah,
the
that makes
original
sense.
one. Yeah, games
It's a
like
different
that.
level of patience and waiting and choice structures that builds upon choices and choices and choices. I guess that makes sense. So we know that NES has left like a legacy, right? It's left its mark on gaming and industries,
Excuse
right?
me.
It wasn't just a console; it was a cultural phenomenon, right? How do you see its legacy in gaming today?
In the way that, well, first
Hmm.
of all, like I said, motion sensors, right? Even the PlayStation 5, the controller, you can move it, right? Xbox had something like that before. I
Yeah, yeah,
forgot
yeah.
the name of it. It failed with the Kinect. I think it was, you know, that's there. The type of games, right? Like you still have games like Mario, like the game that me and Kyle played for the PlayStation 5. Oh my God.
I love Sackboy.
Sackboy. Sackboy. Yeah, me and
Hmm.
Kyle played that game. It's a platformer. It's like Mario. You know what I mean? The storytelling, like Nintendo games, like I said, because they were 8
Yeah.
bits, Nintendo had to put a lot into it. Some of these games, like Zelda, for example, it's a running storyline. If you go back to the original Zelda on Nintendo, it connects to The Legend of Zelda,
Yeah.
Tears of a
The
Kingdom, I
storytelling
think the
is
last one
epic.
was, right? Or something like that. Yeah, like, yeah, the
Yeah.
controller, up, down, left, right, A, B,
Yeah. And it's all
these
Nintendo.
buttons are still there, you know? Yeah, on the PlayStation,
Put
it's
the
not
square
A, B,
X
I think it's
circle.
what?
Yeah.
X,
Triangle.
it's X and circle. Yeah.
Hmm.
But those two buttons, A and B, the start button, pressing the start button to bring up
Yeah.
the menu, pressing the start button to pause the game. Nintendo did that. That was Nintendo. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's what the legacy of that system
Yeah.
is all
This
over the
is true.
place.
And
All over the place. Two players.
yeah.
It was
And
multiplayer too. It was two
the
players.
collectors go crazy for a lot of these NES original consoles and games. Like the cost of them, if you can get the original things, like the original accessories, the games itself, the cartridges, all that stuff is so expensive, and like collectors are serious about it. It's crazy.
Do
Hmm.
you wanna hear something real quick about Mike Tyson's Punch Out since you're talking about collectors? So when Mike Tyson Punch Out came out, Mike Tyson was big, right? He was the man. He was the heavyweight champ. Everything was going good. And then he
Hmm.
got caught being guilty for rape. When he was found guilty for rape, they renamed the game
Oh.
Mr. Dream's Punch Out. So there's two versions of that game. The
Hmm.
first version, you fight Mike Tyson in the end. The second version, you fight Mr. Dream, who's just a
They
white
just
guy.
changed
They
the
just made
outside
some,
of the
he fights
character.
just like Mike, but it ain't Mike. Yeah. So even that, the original version of that, the fact that I got
Yeah.
a chance to play it, because now you can't even find that. Like, that's not on the Switch. It's called
Gone.
Mr. Dream's Punch Out. The Mike Tyson's Punch Out one, it's
Yeah.
cartridge. That's it. If you can find it, you can find it.
What
That's
happened
it.
to all your old
You know,
stuff?
so even that collector's item. Oh my God.
Hindsight 2020.
Trashed, gone. Back then, my parents were immigrants. Nobody knew that when the Super Nintendo came out, that the Nintendo would be worth something.
Yeah.
You know what
You're
I'm
done
saying?
with it.
Like,
It's going
they
to
didn't know
trash.
that. They not from here. So all of, yeah, it was like, oh yeah, I'm done with this. Plus, you go from
Exactly.
8-bit to
And you're
16
like, I
bit. Like,
keep
who wants to
collecting
go
it.
back to this? And now I play them games like it's nothing.
Oh,
All that stuff
hindsight
is
is
gone.
2020. Do you think that
Hmm.
the like gamers like
Definitely.
Kyle, all our modern gamers, that they can appreciate the NES games, or are they just like too dated for today's youth? Oh my, stand
Kids play
Roblox.
Roblox and Minecraft.
Yeah, I don't get it. I
Do
honestly
you
don't
see the
get it. I
graphics
can't
on those
stand
games?
Roblox or Minecraft, but that's just me personally. Personally, I can't stand them.
Uh,
Mhm.
and I know those graphics are
Yeah.
3D, so those are more like PlayStation 1 graphics, but I think I think they can appreciate it. I just feel like they don't have the patience. That's all. I feel like that's the biggest difference between
Hmm.
the people who grew up playing the Nintendo games and the kids who grew up playing like PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Cause the games had a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just up, down, left, right. It was a lot. It was an open world. You can go. underground. You could do things that we couldn't do. So they don't have the patience. They don't have the patience. They want to get in there and get it done. Like I've seen Kyle play Mario. I've seen him play these games and he just dies because he's just
Wait.
jumping and doing things. And it's like with us, it taught us
Yeah.
patience. Yes, you have to
And
wait. You have to
I
figure out
think
the
what's so
pattern of
interesting
this
about
thing,
that, right? Like
you
that's
know? So,
something that Nintendo has kept throughout because even the more modern Zeldas, there are a lot of pattern recognition that you have to wait and see what's happening, right? They built up the what do they call them? The when you have to go in the trials, is it a trial? You have to go into the trials, and a lot of them you have to
yeah,
like
yeah,
literally
trials.
stand and look around the room to figure out what's happening before making any moves because you run right in the room and you're dead, right? Like something has taken you out, you don't know what, or you can't get across the platform, but you have to like sit there and watch and look and pay attention to all the little movements in the room. Yeah, so definitely,
Hmm. Yeah, and
yeah.
all of those skills translate. You know, you play games like Spider-Man or our game Horizon, right? Horizon is like a Nintendo game, kind of, you know? It's intricate, very layered. The story is deep. You know, PlayStation hit a gold
It
mine with
is.
that one, but
It
that's like
really
a
is. It
Zelda
really
type
is.
game, Prince of
And you
Persia
know,
type game, you
Nintendo is
know?
still influencing the design, the game, the indie game development designs right now, right? Like, 'cause if you look at a lot of these cozy 8-bit games, like what's this one? Stardew Valley. All of these have the same kind of style that Nintendo started with, right? Like so a lot of these indie game
Hmm.
developers are using a lot of stuff to make sure that they're keeping that nostalgia, and that's what gets us right. It's like the nostalgia of the games and feelings that we had when we first got our systems and stuff, and it pulls us in.
You know what's a game that nobody, okay, so people who played this game know it. Looking back on it, it ain't like it's like
Hmm.
the most entertaining game, but it was one of those games that when you had Nintendo and you played it, you had fun. They had a game called Paperboy. Very simple
Hmm.
game. Very simple. You're just a paper boy. He's riding his bike and you just throw the
Hmm.
papers. That's it. You throw the papers. I don't know if it's on
Hmm.
the Switch. It might be on the Switch, but that game, nobody talks about that game. And if I played the game now, I'd probably look at it and say, this game sucks. But at the
I
time,
can't. I
it was
totally. I don't
fun.
even
Like, it was
recall
a
it. I
really
don't remember
fun
that game
game.
at
It
all.
was
I have to
really
look it
fun.
up.
Oh, and another one, Turtles.
Hmm.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out on Nintendo. Outside of Turtles 1, which you can ask anybody who's ever played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, the water level. Everybody knows what that level is. That's one of the hardest levels in gaming history. If you go to YouTube and look up hardest levels, that level pops up. And I beat that level. So
Hmm.
I get very excited when I see things, you know? But
Hmm.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 and 3 were side scroll beat 'em up games. And what did
The
they
Shredder's
just drop
Revenge. The
like a few
Shredder's
years
Revenge.
ago? The Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah.
Just like that. It's pretty much the same thing, you know? And they just dropped a Double Dragon
Are they?
game. No, they're about to release a Double Dragon game with like, yeah, with like today's kind of updated graphics,
The
you know? So they still release
Yeah.
games. The Karate Kid, they just came out with a Karate Kid game. Side scroll, beat 'em up, just like Nintendo. And the graphics are like,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
Nintendo-ish, but like Super Nintendo-ish,
Yeah.
but the inspiration comes from
And they'll catch us.
Nintendo,
We'll play
the
them.
original one.
All right, so
They
that's a
know who the
wrap on our
audience
first
is.
checkpoint, right? So the NES didn't just start a revolution, right? It created a community of
Mhm.
gamers who clearly are still immersed and celebrating the magic today. Do you got any final thoughts about the 8-bit era?
Man, I think the 8-bit era, and I'm gonna sound very biased. I think it produced the greatest generation of video gamers
Mm.
ever. And I know there were games before that, like Atari. I get it. Atari existed. Um, other games. You know what?
Guru.
I'm not gonna act like I'm some video game like guru. You know, I grew up in it and I played my fair share enough to know that the people that I know who play video games compared to even
Mm-hmm.
my I got three kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like 7 years apart, right? I've played games with all of them. The oldest one is 17 right now. Him and I
Yeah.
played Super Mario Brothers Wii. You know what I'm saying? I put him through that. You know what I'm saying? And that was like, cause I knew how to play it from Nintendo. He couldn't have beat that by himself, right? Me and Kyle play
That's
Sackboy. We
mm-hmm.
play Astrobot. We play Shredder's Revenge. We play all of these games together and he knows how to play them because I tell him, yo, you gotta stop. You gotta look. You gotta listen. He would kill himself in these games.
Mm-hmm.
But because he played with me, he knows how to play. I think the 8-bit era, I think it produced the greatest era of
That's
gamers.
us.
Just
Not me though. I'm
point
not.
blank
I'm not
period.
great. I'm just here for the lives. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us on Game Life Chronicles, the checkpoints. Yo, my words are tearing up. It's late at night, chat. It's late at night. All right, checkpoints through time. Next episode, we'll power up to the 16-bit era and talk about the epic Sega versus Nintendo round. All right.